Hello, everyone. We're back again. It's another glorious week. It's another interesting episode of our special show, and I believe that you're going to have such a great time today. I'm Joshua Amatare coming to you live from Kyiv, and last week was such an amazing time. It was such a unique experience. We got lots of reviews from both sides. Some people enjoyed it. Some people were overwhelmed by the information. Some people were just taken aback by the things that they heard, but it was such an enlightening experience. And I believe everyone who joined us went away with something. Thank you for joining us again today. We're going to be having a book review from an author all the way from Nigeria. And we're going to be discussing a topic that not many people in Nigeria or in Africa as a whole discuss. The Western world just actually started discussing this topic about a couple of decades ago. And it's something that has become a lot more prevalent in society because we've got people who throughout history have talked about this topic, but it was not really something at the center of the discussion in society or something commonly spoken about because of the stigma behind it and because of how much people did not want to be associated with what we're going to talk about today. And in Africa, we're still behind the curve. And this topic is going to help push us into a new way of thinking, push us into a new way of acting that will bring about a more healthy lifestyle, a more productive lifestyle, and a happier way to live life as human beings, as Africans, and even a lot more, and to make us a lot more productive as a continent, not just, as individuals. Because we know that Africa right now is called the dark continent. And if we're going to be productive people, we have to be sound in our spirit, in our minds, and in our bodies. So today we're going to be talking to someone who has written about depression. He has written about mental illness. He has written about mental well-being. He has written about things that go on the inside of us. In his book that we're going to be reviewing today, he talks about it, he describes it as an invisible illness, an invisible sickness. And that's something that every single person needs to be interested in because it's either going to happen to you or it's going to happen to somebody who you know. It's unavoidable. All throughout our lives, we're going to fall sick at one point or the other in our bodies. And also, our minds are going to get attacked because as human beings, it is unavoidable. Now, you're going to come under pressure. You're going to come under attacks. Your emotions are going to be strained. Your mind is going to be put under enormous pressure due to the circumstances and situations of life. And depression is an outcome of some of these things. And we're going to be discussing at length today of how to deal with depression. We're going to be discussing how to avoid suicide because we will see in the statistics that suicide is on the rise, especially in this COVID-19 period. A lot of people are taking their lives because they cannot handle their mental illness. They cannot handle depression. There's a stigma behind it. A lot of people want to ignore it. A lot of people want to pray it away. A lot of people want to act like, it is an incurable sickness, and it has led to a lot of lives being lost, both young and old. In fact, 25%, I saw this from the book, 25% of high school kids every year contemplate suicide. Now, we're not talking about people who are adults. We're talking about kids. These are people who should have no care in the world. They're already contemplating suicide, and many have gone ahead to commit suicide. And we're going to be tackling this problem because in the Nigerian society, we're once a happy society, but right now we're becoming a lot more depressed because of the problems that we're facing and because a lot of people don't know how to deal with depression and mental health issues and stress and what have you. So our author today is going to be breaking things down for us. He's got this fantastic book and it's something that every one of us should get. Please share this link on YouTube. You can get the link on Facebook. You can get the link. Share it with your friends because every single one of them has a mental challenge that they are going to face or that they are facing at this time, or they have a friend who is facing these problems. And this segment today might just be the saving grace that they need, and it to help point them in the right direction. I know of a lot of friends who say, "Oh, I knew this person and I thought they were fine. I just knew that they were facing some depression and I didn't know that it was that bad until they committed suicide." So instead of regretting later that you could have done something to help, please help someone today by sharing this video so that they can listen to the things that we're going to say. And I believe that it's going to help to change their lives. So without much further ado, please welcome with me our guest all the way from Nigeria, David Oyeleye. Hello, David. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Pastor Josh.
It's good having you here with us, all the way from Osun State, Nigeria. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. It's good to have you also. It's a great honor to be here today.
Fantastic. Congratulations on your book, The Mind Flayer, on Eating the Deepest Roots of Depression and Other Oppressive Emotions. Now,
Yeah, thank you very much, sir.
yeah, congratulations on writing such a book. And I saw DS's forward in the book, and he said some things that were very profound and true, in the sense that a lot of people don't talk about depression in Nigeria. It's not something that we even care about. And in the
That's
Western
true.
world, it's just in the past few decades that people have even come into, the cognizance, or have been able to accept, like I said in my opening monologue, that depression is a real issue. So can you just tell us briefly, before you even tell us about yourself, tell us how you came across this issue of depression? Is this something you dealt with personally? Because one thing I noticed from the book is that you didn't talk a lot about yourself. You're focused on the topic. So let's get to meet the author before we go on to the subject of the book. So what is it that turned you on to this issue of depression? Because it's not something that is common in the Nigerian society right now.
Actually, I'm surprised myself that I'm writing a book like this
Okay.
because I've never even thought about it of writing such a book like this. In fact, I've written books before this time that have not been published, about 4 to 5 of them.
Wow. Okay.
So I'm very surprised that I'm writing a book like this. I feel that it was something that happened, that transpired, and at the same time, I believe I was inspired by the Holy Spirit to document some of the ideas that I have about this book. If I'm proud to write in this book, I really do not have enough knowledge about the subject. It was while writing the book that I came across certain knowledge. In fact, as a matter of fact, when I started writing the book, I was trying to write a book that's going to be read by both unbelievers and believers. But it was while I was writing, I found out that you really cannot deal with the issue if you want to also make it, make unbelievers, to be able to read. I discovered that there are some truth that will be left out. So that was the reason why I just made it a Christian material. So somebody committed suicide around me. I was supposed to have a leaders meeting where I pastor. I pastor a small group in school then. So we have series of cases on the internet, reading on the internet, people committing suicide just because of their academic result. And I felt like, why is the government not talking about it? In fact, why is the church not talking about it? So those questions just led me to write a book. As I visited the person in the hospital, and I felt so sad for the person, that why would someone think of taking their lives? So that was what led me to write this book. And as I was writing the book, I found out the reason why people actually take their lives.
Wow. Interesting. So why did you leave this part out of the book? Or was it somewhere there and I didn't say it?
What did you say?
Why did you leave this story out of the book? Or is it there and I've not seen it because I read the book? At least I went through it, but I didn't see this story.
Yeah, it's actually true. Maybe it was just an omission.
Okay. I believe that your readers would love to know your story, because if you experience someone commit suicide, it's a life-changing experience. It's not something that can be described, because you lose someone personally until you have that personal touch of seeing somebody depart, and just shortly after seeing them, it changes the way you see the world. So I feel like that's something that you really should have highlighted, but I'm glad that you're here on the show, so those who are watching will get to enjoy that part of it. You were saying something. Go ahead.
It didn't cross my mind.
Aha, it didn't cross your mind. Oh, well, welcome to the DSA show. Here we take things a little bit further. So maybe next time you should try to involve us in your book writing process, so that we can help you with some ideas that would help to boost the quality of the book. But all around, it is a fantastic book. So please, before we go into the subject of depression, just give us a little background about yourself. Who are you? And just tell us how you came about writing books generally.
Okay, I'm David Oyeleye. I'm a son of a pastor, so I have a Christian background, and I love to teach. I've always loved to teach. I've been moving from school since when I was young, teaching young people, teenagers, secondary school students, and in fact, at some point, some people thought that probably I was an evangelist, and it was later on I found out that I'm not an evangelist. I'm called to be a teacher. So I love teaching. I love to communicate, and I love to empower people. So basically, everything I do with my life is actually to empower people, to see people live productive life, to live purposeful life. That's basically what I do. So I love writing. I think it started about 8 years ago, thereabouts. So while reading, I will discover that this author did not explain this, did not explain. So I usually see books inside a book. When I'm reading a book, I will see like 10 potential books in the book. So I'm like, why did this author actually, talk about this? And I think that one of the things that actually led me to writing books was I was, reading Dr. Miles Monroe's material. I love Dr. Miles Monroe material. So I'll read, and I will ask question that how could someone be so intelligent and versatile like this, Dr. Miles Monroe? So it led me to discovering myself. I talk about purpose a lot, and I feel that that's one of the things I'm called to do, to help empower people to lead a purpose-driven life. So, in fact, when I was in the part one in the university, I wrote a list of books that I was going to write, although I can't see the title of those books again because I lost the phone. I was using a
Wow.
Curve 7 BlackBerry then. That is a long time ago. So I just wrote the list of, I had no idea about what was going to be the content of the book, but I just knew that this guy, you're going to write books someday. So I wrote all the titles. There were about 40 to 50 books then. So as we speak, I have about 4 to 5 books. One has been published, and I think, and also, meeting with DSA and reading his books, when I got to know about him on the internet, I was so surprised. I was so shocked that his first book I read was Money Won't Make You Rich. That book has changed my life forever. And Church Shift, and so many other books. Stop Working for Uncle Sam, and so many other books like that. That there is a fantastic book that DSA has written. I was even shocked when I was going through his profile and I found out that DSA has written over 400 books.
Yep.
I was like,
He wants to get to
write
1,000.
books every day? So I think that was what led me to write the book, and that's just a brief description about myself. I'm a simple person. I love to teach, so you can call me a teacher. I also empower people with leadership and management skills. So I organize leadership and management events here in Nigeria.
Okay, that's fantastic. We're happy that at least we have people who are willing to write, because Nigeria is not a country that is known for a lot of reading, talk less of writing. So we're happy that we have young authors who are willing to put themselves out there and research these ideas and put them in a very coherent way so that the rest of us can read and understand and also get into the know of these subjects. So
Yes.
the Mind Flayer, how did you come about such a topic? What exactly does the Mind Flayer mean?
Well, it's actually a long story, and I know people will always ask me this question. Well,
Yep.
actually, I only have the idea of the book, but I think I'm not always good with titles.
Okay.
So if I've had series of titles before coming across this one, there was a time I even titled it, I think, Prison Break. It sounded so funny, like, are you trying to be another Michael Scofield? So I talked with some of my friends, and there was this young lady that I mentored that actually suggested, I told her the idea of the book, that I want a title that captured the whole essence. The book is not just about depression. It's all about, it's about emotions generally. But I think depression is just one of the prevalent emotions that was discussed. So when she told me that title, so I went online. I think it was lifted from a movie, I think Stranger Things. It was a creature that manipulates people's mind and, make them do what they don't want to do. So I feel that that's a good title for the book. So it's actually a title from a movie, Stranger Things, although I've not seen the movie up to now.
Okay.
So it's someone's idea.
Interesting. So what does the word Flayer mean?
The word flair actually means to control someone, to manipulate someone, let's put it this way, is to control someone against someone's decision. Something you don't want to do, you find yourself doing it.
All right. So it's
So we
like a
can call
mind
it
control
an
thing.
oppression.
Okay. So it's like a mind control thing, an influence thing.
Yes, influence, yes.
All right.
A
Fantastic.
negative influence.
Great. So your book says unearthing the deepest roots of depression. So can you give us some facts about depression and some of the facts that you have found that are the root cause? Because every single person is going to be depressed at one point or the other in their lives. I don't think anybody is going to get through life just being happy, jolly and hey. There's going to come a time that depression is going to hit. But some people last longer in it, and it takes its toll more on some people than others. And that's why we've been able to we're having the problems that we're having these days, which is suicide, which is alcoholism. In fact, they are called diseases of despair because the moment depression sets in, a lot of things follow, which is drug addiction, alcoholism, and different kinds of, things that lead to destruction. So please just give us in a nutshell some of the root causes that you found that bring about depression.
All right. There are a lot of causes of depression, actually. I believe that this section will not be enough for us to look at them all. But one of the fundamental cause of depression is inability to control our thoughts. The Bible tells us that as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. We know that to be true for financial success. We know that to be true for so many other things we want to achieve in life. But a lot of people have not come to terms with that scripture that for as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So which means that depression actually starts with a thought. And this is where psychology and Christianity agrees. And this is where the agreement stops. If you notice, if you have read the book, you have the privilege to read the book, you will notice that the book is not against psychology. The book is not against medicine. In fact, I drew some, facts, some information, some knowledge from the field of psychology and medicine. So the book is not anti-psychology, neither is it anti-medicine. But one thing I found out that the psychologists, medicine, Christianity, we all agree that our thoughts is the foundation of our wellness, is the foundation of our prosperity. Prosperity in the spirit, prosperity in the soul, prosperity in the body, even prosperity in our emotions. So our thoughts is one of the major foundations. So we cannot effectively deal with any problem until we address it in our heart. And that's the reason for the title, The Mind Flayer. The Bible tells us that we should guard our heart with all diligence, for out of it are issues of life. One version says, this is where life starts. So our thoughts, which leads to our emotions. Now, what we need to understand is that our emotion is the voice of our thoughts. Your emotion tells you the kind of thoughts that is flowing through your heart. So your emotion is just telling you what is wrong with you. So your emotion is not what is really wrong with you. Your emotion is just telling you what is wrong with you. The fact that you have symptoms of headache does not mean you already have headache. It's just telling you that these are the symptoms associated with headache. So not able to control our thoughts, and which is also influenced by what we expose ourselves to. One of the reasons why depression is so prevalent today is because of social media. There are times you're just surfing on the internet and you just read something that just makes you sad. And that's why we see a lot of suicidal attempts, suicidal cases, depression here and there, just because of what people see on the internet. And another thing is the fact that our thought is based on our words. Our thought is based on our words. How do I mean? The things you say, the things that affect your thought. And the things that you hear, which is also words, are the things that affect your heart. And that's why the Bible tells us that faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. If faith comes by hearing, it's the same way fear comes. If faith comes by hearing, it's the same way sorrow comes. So everything that happens to us is based on the things that we've heard. And that's why when you go back to Genesis chapter 2, thereabout, when Adam was tempted, Adam and Eve now tempted by the devil. The first thing that the devil asked Eve was that, as God said, because faith is based on what God said, and fear is based on what the devil has said or on what somebody else has said. So majorly our thoughts, our emotions are the major reason for depression. There are many other reasons, but I don't want to go into that now because of time. So our thoughts and emotions are the major reason why people are depressed.
All right, that's great. How can people tell if they're depressed? What are some of the pointers that you can give to people that will make them know if they're depressed? Because most people who are depressed don't know they're depressed, especially
Absolutely.
within the Nigerian community or African community, where the issue of mental health or psychology is not spoken about commonly. So we need to be able to know what depression looks like and how people can self-diagnose if they have depression before now looking for a solution. Because without knowing you have a problem, it's going to be hard for you to chase a solution.
That's true. The first thing I would like to say is this, which is in the first, I think, the introduction of the book, where I wrote about some untold truths about depression. Number one, you need to understand that depression is not a special disease. Depression is just like another headache. Depression is just like another malaria. When people have malaria, they don't think they have issues. They just simply visit a medical doctor. But when people are depressed, they think they have a special sickness, and because people associate depression with being mad. So when someone tells you, for instance, I'm depressed, you will look at the person as though the person is mad. And that's one of the reasons people who are depressed are not bold enough to tell another person that they are depressed. If I have malaria, I will not have any problem telling my friends that, oh, I have malaria, I have headache. In fact, some are not even if you have HIV, you are bold enough to tell someone you have HIV or you have a sickle cell problem. But when it comes to emotional problem, mental health problem, people just keep to themselves. And I believe it's because of the devil. The devil is trying to destroy people because one of the ways you can easily destroy a man is in their emotions. And that's the area that the enemy viciously and constantly attack in our emotions. The devil is not attacking your clothes. The devil doesn't mind if you change your clothes. The devil doesn't mind if you change your dress. It doesn't mind if you change your address. In fact, it doesn't mind if you change your church. As long as you don't change your mind, the devil has no problem with you. But the moment you want to change your mind, that's when the devil comes after you. So the first thing is that depression is not a special disease that needs a special consultation. It's just like a normal disease. Just the only difference is that depression is not a physical disease, it's an emotional disease. So let's take it from there. No, I'm depressed, that doesn't mean I'm mad. The fact that I'm anxious doesn't mean I'm mad. I'm not crazy. So you don't have to be insane to be depressed. It's not because you are crazy. So people need to know that you are not crazy. Don't see yourself as being crazy. And that's why, in fact, aside from even Christianity, you can walk up to a mental health specialist and tell them this is what we've been feeling. So that's the first part. Now, the other thing that you need to understand is I've distilled it to 3 areas for you to be able to diagnose if you are depressed or not, or maybe you're having the early symptoms of depression. Now, we need to understand that depression actually grows. It actually grows. We have all kinds of depression. I don't want to go into the terms now, not to bore people about the terminology, because what we really need is a solution, not big words and everything.
They can find it when they get the book.
They can find it when they get the book, so they can see the types of depression that we have and all of that. Now, once we have understand that depression is not a special problem that needs a special doctor to attend to you, then you can go ahead to deal with it. Another thing I almost forgot is the fact that you should not ignore the fact that you're depressed. Christians love to do this. You know, Christians love to deny problems. And in fact, the Bible says in the book of Mark, it said, you will say to this mountain, it didn't say you will ignore this mountain, because people think that once I'm living by faith, it means that I don't have problems. But faith is not the denial of adversity. Faith is confronting adversity with the integrity of God's word. So faith is not denying fact. Faith is not accepting fact as the truth. So it's a fact that you are depressed, but it's not true that you are depressed. It's 2 different things entirely. So the truth is that by his stripes we are healed. That's the truth. But the fact is that you are depressed. So now that I've accepted, because until people accept that they have problems, they cannot solve the problem. Any problem that you have not accepted that you have, you can't really do. In fact, have we noticed that when we visit a medical doctor, and even though a medical doctor can see the physical signs on your face and your body, they will not assume. They still want to diagnose exactly what is wrong with you. And people pay a lot of money just to know what is wrong with them. It's just that at this part of the world, we don't go for things like medical checkup because we can barely fend for ourselves. Normally, we are supposed to go for medical checkup. We are supposed to go for dental checkup. But is it the person that cannot afford a 3-square meal or triangle meal that will be able to go for checkup? So we need to understand that, okay, I have a problem. I have a problem, but I am not a problem. So after that, then you can now start dealing with the problem. Now, how do I know that I'm depressed? Number 1, let's look at 3 areas. Your thoughts, your emotions, and your relationship. Now, let me distill that relationship to 2. We have the vertical relationship and the horizontal relationship. Your vertical relationship is your relationship with God, while your horizontal relationship is your relationship with people. But when it comes to depression, it's even possible that some people claim to have healthy relationship with God. But one thing about depression is that even if you claim to have healthy relationship with God, you will not have healthy relationship with people. So check people who are depressed. They have relationship problems. And that's the reason why I wrote on the law of the 2. Now, it starts with being reclusive. You start withdrawing from relationship. You know, some people will even pretend as though I'm seeking the face of God. But they are not seeking the face of God. Why is withdraw one of the early symptoms of depression because the devil thrives on our thoughts. And the more you are secluded, the more you are separated from relationship, the more the devil can plant those thoughts on your heart. Now, I was saying something the other time, if you remember, I was talking about psychology and Christianity where we agree. The only place we agree is that our thought is the foundation of our life. So psychologists believe that if you can improve the quality of your thought, they believe that you can improve the quality of your life. But where does this thought come from? They don't know. And that is the essence of the book. Now, one of the things we need to understand is that negative thoughts actually originate from an unrenewed mind. And that's why the Bible tells us in Romans 12, verse 2, not to be conformed to this world, but be ye transformed, be ye changed, not by the renewing of your dress, not by the renewing of your clothes, not by the renewing of your cars, but by the renewing of your mind. Are we following now? By the renewing of your mind. It's very, very important. So after I've dealt with, okay, want to say something?
No, I just said true. Like I was confirming what you said.
Okay. So that's the first part. So now the devil started to plant thoughts in people's heart. Now, how do I know that the devil actually plant thoughts in people's heart? Let's look at the case of David when he numbered Israel. David had no idea. It's in the book. David had no idea that he was moved by the devil. It was later we're reading the book that we found out that the Lord was angry with David. I'm like, what's just the big thing numbering people? And we later found out that it was the devil that actually moved David to do that. And how does the devil move people to do things? He doesn't just come on them, he just suggests thoughts to them. So thought comes from just simple suggestion. Another example is Peter. We're talking about where those thoughts originate from. Because if we tell people to change their thought, they need to know where those thoughts are coming from. Psychology believes that if you improve your thought, you can improve your life. But where are those thoughts coming from? The thoughts are not coming from you. There is no way that you can think by yourself of killing yourself. It's not because you are insane. Somebody dropped that thoughts on you, inside of you rather. So devil is the primary person, the principal person that suggests thoughts into people's heart. Now, look at when Jesus was about to die and he was telling disciples and Peter rebuked Jesus that you are not going to die. You would think that Peter was doing positive confession. But he wasn't. Peter was going against the word of God. We wouldn't have known if Jesus had not confronted him. He said, "Get behind me, Satan." He didn't say, "Get behind me, Peter." So which means that Jesus was not referring to Peter. Jesus was confronting the influence of Satan on the thinking pattern of Peter. I'm sure Peter himself did not know he was influenced by the devil. A lot of people are influenced by the devil without knowing. That's why people are bitter. That's why people are sad. That's why people are sorrowful. So it is the devil that influences people's thoughts. So when we understand that the devil is actually the one suggesting thoughts to our heart, or those thoughts are coming from an unrenewed mind, then we can deal with that. So that's where the root problem is. Because you can't deal with any problem without dealing with the thought. Now that the thought comes from the devil, how do I take charge of that thought? It's in Matthew chapter 6. When Jesus was teaching on anxiety, he said, take no thoughts. Take no thought.
You've overtaken me and you've gotten to solutions. I told you to just give us the symptoms and how people can tell if they're depressed. But now, as the teacher you are, you've gone far. So let's slow you down.
Sorry.
Let's get back to how can people self-diagnose that they have depression before we get to the solutions.
So we've talked about thought. We've talked about the origin of the thought. Reclusiveness is one of the major symptoms. You withdraw from people. It's not normal to withdraw from people. We were created social beings. Social media cannot replace relationship. There are a lot of people who finds it more easy to have a pet as a friend. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, who prefer to play with pets, play with dogs, than have a relationship with human beings.
True.
Because our health and wholeness has been tied to relationships. Now, when I'm talking about relationships, I'm not talking about clingy relationship because that's another side of an emotional problem. So reclusiveness is one of the symptoms. Number two, depression is also associated with low self-esteem. You can't solve any problem. When a problem is posed at you, you lack the ability to solve the problem. That's another symptoms.
All
Another
right.
thing you can know that you are also depressed is that you are always anxious. You have this heaviness of heart. It was Solomon who wrote. Solomon wrote about depression in Proverbs. He said in Proverbs 12 verse 25. He said, "Anxiety in a man's heart causes depression." So, which means that it is actually anxiety that is not called. We will always be anxious sometimes. But the problem with people is that they don't know how to arrest anxiety, and that's why Jesus talked on this subject. He talked on anxiety. So we don't know why a lot of people are not talking about this subject. So anxiety, you are always anxious. Anxiety is prophesying about the bad things that you don't want to happen. Did you notice the word I use? Prophesying about the bad things you don't want to happen. A lot of people will just be imagining bad things happening to them, being anxious of tomorrow. So another thing we need to also note is fear. If you're depressed, one thing that will be very prevalent is fear. And it will also lead to fear of death. When you start having that fear of death, now you're already helping the devil to bring about his mission to pass in your life. Because even Job said, what I have feared came upon me. It's not what God permitted. God did not permit all the things that happened to Job to happen to Job. He himself later reviewed and found out that the foundation of his problem was actually fear. He said, what I have feared the most have come upon me. So that's one of the reasons. So fear, lack of self-esteem, being reclusive, withdrawing from relationship are one of the things that people can actually know to diagnose their problems.
All right. Problems. I can I add something to that? I believe that one of the things I've also noticed about people who are depressed is loss of passion for anything and loss of passion for life.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they lose loss their passion for living. They lose interest in their jobs.
Pleasurable activities.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like they lose their passion even in things that they have enjoyed before.
True. Yeah,
so
that's
they can't
absolutely
find something they can't find something that interests them. So the world is just like snake pick to them. So they find themselves not doing anything. Someone who was vibrant in the church before, finds church as boring. Even you love to play table tennis. You just hate everything. You just hate everything.
Some people have problems sleeping. Some people have problems eating.
Absolutely. It affects their sleeping habit also.
So that means depression is such a multi-pronged illness that it affects every aspect of people's lives. And I feel like depression starts in the mind, but it can also morph into the body because it can make people to have addictions that will now begin to affect their health. For example, like you said, people become reclusive and they start spending more time alone. Probably they pick up a habit of overeating. It makes them to gain weight. And that weight brings about, heart disease, and it causes a lot of problems. I saw a fact in your book that I didn't know before, which was that depression costs the world $1 trillion every single year. The problems of depression cost $1 trillion in the workforce, in the economy. Can you please break that down for us and make us understand how that is even possible? Because $1 trillion is a lot of money. That's more than Nigeria's GDP. So if that's something that is caused by depression alone, I think that's something we need to pay attention to. So make us understand how that's possible.
Okay. If you check WHO's program, one of the things you will notice is that WHO is trying a lot to solve this problem. There are a lot of mental health campaigns here and there, government pumping money into mental health programs. And the truth is this depression is not just limited to a psychological problem. And that's one of the reasons no amount of, people buy antidepressant drugs may remove, the temporal, it may give you a temporary relief, but it can never solve the problem because the root is on the inside. And the drugs that you take can never change your thoughts. The drugs that you take will just suspend you from feeling in a certain way for some few minutes, just like this painkiller. It doesn't mean that the pain is not there. You are just not feeling it. So WHO has actually done a lot, spending a lot of money on mental health campaign and some other NGOs like that. And from the statistics, I've not done much to really read about it, how the nitty-gritty. But one thing I know is that government are spending a lot of money, especially World Health Organization is spending a lot of money on this particular. There are a lot of programs, a lot of seminars going on about depression.
All right. I did some studies on that, and I saw that part of the things that causes that problem is, for example, the loss of finance when it comes to antidepressants. Like you said, the antidepressant industry is booming, especially during this COVID-19 period. The suicide rate is up, the depression rate is up, the alcoholism rate by double digits in almost all the Western countries and in almost every country of the world, actually. So it's a real pandemic right now, because in fact, people are saying, and people in the World Health Organization also backed this up, that they are trying to make sure that the cure does not become, or the solution does not become worse than the disease itself. Because what they're saying is people should stay at home, and in staying at home, they are becoming depressed. And in depression, they are beginning to die by killing themselves, by getting addicted. And now we have more people dying from depression, more people dying from seclusion than people who are dying from COVID-19. So it's now becoming a massive problem. And I believe that that's part of what is affecting the economy, because if somebody is depressed, they cannot work proproperly.
Yeah, they can't.
They will take a lot of sick days. Exactly. So when you take a lot of sick days, that takes a lot from your productivity. And when you're paying the pharmaceutical companies, you're losing your income, or you're losing part of your income to solving this problem of yours. By the time you're going to a shrink, you're losing a lot of things as well. And I believe that this lack of productivity that comes from depression, because like you said in your book, that without having a healthy mind, you cannot have healthy productivity. You cannot have a healthy life. And it's going to change everything about yourself. It will change your relationships. And it will just dumb down everything about you. So people who are depressed are costing not just themselves a lot of pain, but the people around them and the economy as a whole, if they're part of the workforce. So I think that is something that we need to pay attention to. And I love this book because when I came back from Nigeria, I was in Nigeria a couple of years ago. I told my friends that I'm on an active mission right now to recruit psychologists who will go back to Nigeria with me, or who would just go back to Nigeria and start their practices. Because one thing I realized when I went back was that a lot of the problems that people had were psychological. They were not spiritual. They were not even medical per se when it comes to their health, but it was a problem with their minds. So I said, I didn't see enough psychologists in Nigeria. I didn't even see many private practices wherever I traveled to, and we have a whole lot of people walking around. And in your book, you have a statistic that about 60 million Nigerians out of the 200 million of us have mental health problems. And we don't even know. And we don't even have up to 10,000 psychologists in the country. I don't know how many have you met. Let me talk to you as the expert, since you wrote a book and you did research. How many psychologists do you personally know in Nigeria?
Well, I know students who study psychology, but I don't know many people that are actually applying that money to solve people's problems.
If someone comes to you right now, or let's say that you walk into a hall and they say, oh, this is a surprise meeting, and since you wrote a book about mental health, everybody in this hall, 500 of us have psychological problems. Do you have doctors that you'll be able to prescribe to these people?
There is scarcity of professionals here, sir.
That's
one of the problems we have.
So that means this your book is a clarion call to Nigerians that we need a lot more psychologists. In fact, when I came back here, I was asking every medical student I met, because a lot of people here are reading medicine. I was asking many of them, I said, hope you're going into psychology. It was like, I became fanatical about it, because I said, we have enough people treating the body, we don't have enough people treating our minds. And without treating the minds, you have a lot more people having sicknesses in their body, and you have a lot of problems all throughout society. I say, for example, depression can make people to start acting out in ways that are disastrous to the health of others. For example, when you're depressed, you can start drinking. When you're drunk, you start fights. When you're drunk, you can get into accidents. When you're drunk, you start hurting people around you physically. And everybody knows that people who abuse alcohol abuse people eventually. That's one thing. People who abuse alcohol, they rape people. And when you rape somebody, you're multiplying your problems, because somebody who was innocent, who was happy, suddenly you take away their joy by raping them or abusing them. That creates a lot of problems. So I feel like without us solving this psychological problem in Nigeria and dealing with mental health, we're setting ourselves up for destruction. Because imagine a country of 60 million people who have no help whatsoever. What do you think will become of such a country?
You can now see why the Nigerian country is not productive. Because being productive actually starts with the mind. Creativity starts with the mind. Innovation starts with the mind. People thinking, because I think one of the challenges we are having in this country is that I think we're chatting one of these days. I was talking about mental work and manual work. So we are trained to work manually, to work with our hands. We are not trained to work with our minds. And that's really what hard work is. Hard work is not really working with your hand, it's working with the mind. And one of the things that we will observe where we actually have the problem, which is foundational, is our education system. Which of the courses we take in school actually address anything about the mind? If you didn't
Nothing.
study psychology,
Zero.
or probably you study counseling. If you don't study those two courses, absolutely you don't have any knowledge about the workings of the mind. Even if you study psychology, they bombard you with theories of people that be like, what is this guy saying? What are you saying? And everything like that. So even the people who study psychology still have a limited knowledge. So that's one of the reasons why this country is like this, because there is no emphasis on capacity building, on building the minds of people. You can't solve people's problem by just giving them money. We've seen a lot of grant that is being pumped into Nigeria, month by month. Those grants can't solve our financial problem. It can't solve our health problem. And like you said, if you don't deal with the issue of the mind, you will have more people getting sick, because it has been said that about 75 to 85% of even physical sicknesses are traced to emotional disorder, stress, anxiety, worry. So that's it.
I believe that this book is going to help to change a lot of minds. Please, before we go forward, tell the people where they can find this book, just in case they're getting fired up as we're talking, so that they'll be able to go and get it for themselves.
Okay, the book is available on my website, www.dotmglobal.com.ng. That's DOTM, then global.com.ng. You can also find the book on Amazon if you're outside Nigeria. If you're in Nigeria, you can also find the books on Okada Books. The book is also available on BAM Books. The book is also available on Barnes & Nobles and other retailing platforms. You can also get the book directly on the website if you request a hard copy.
Fantastic. So you guys have heard it. You can get the book on his website. You can get it on Amazon, on BAM Books, on Okada Books. You need to go and get this book on healing your mind and understanding the challenges that you're facing in your mind. It's titled The Mind Flayer. I believe that as you get this book, it will be a complete game changer. So let's go back to the reasons why people get depressed. Because a lot of people don't understand why depression comes. They think it's something that is just an attack from the devil, and that's just one aspect of it. But because we are alive in this world and we're human beings who have a mind, who have minds, you said something. You said in school, except you read counseling, you're not going to come across it. Yes. I was privileged to go to some of the best schools when I was in Nigeria. We had counselors, and there was zero counseling for anything that had to do with our minds. I don't even know. In fact, they call them guidance and counselors only when it comes to career. And even career-wise, they didn't even do much for us. I can tell you that. How much more other schools? So we have people who, for example, lose their parents, and there's no counseling for them because these people have suffered an emotional trauma that needs to be handled or that needs to be taken care of. And there's nobody to put them through how to solve that problem. We have people also who go through heartbreaks of different kinds. Young people who break up in relationships. When I was in university, a guy jumped from the 5th floor of our hostel because his girlfriend broke up with him. And I think much later, we saw a girl who did the same thing. So we don't have a lot of people who are helping to solve this problem. So can you tell us some of the things that can bring about depression and how people should be wary or should be alerted to some of these problems? Because when they see the symptoms, they should be able to know that, okay, this is the cause and this is what I should do thereafter. So please go ahead and tell us some of the causes.
Okay. I didn't hear you properly.
I said you should tell us the causes of depression.
Okay, like we've talked about the lead to why we're talking. The fundamental cause of depression is anxiety. And anxiety, is just little worry here and there. And that's why the Bible tells us to cast our cares on him. In fact, if you check the word cast in the Greek, the word cast, as I wrote in the book, it actually means to forcefully throw something like you load a donkey's back. Like it's not something you just carry slowly, it's something you throw away. Because anxiety is going to destroy your life. And that's why Jesus said you should not manage it. There's a lot, if you go to Amazon, you will see all kinds of books. I saw a book I don't know where, How to Be Less Sad. I was surprised. Like, what kind of book is this? How to Be Less Sad. Like, and people are going to buy the book. How can you write a book how to teach people how to be less sad? So the first thing is that anxiety. Anxiety, Proverbs chapter 12, verse 25 says, causes depression. Anxiety causes depression. That's what Solomon said. And I found this statement to be true because most of our problems actually are anxiety problems. So those lead to anxiety is like, how will I put it now? It's like someone who receives a guest. You know, you prepare a guest to receive a guest. So it starts with an anxiety. It starts with anxiety. Anxiety is going to lead to fear. Fear is going to paralyze your self-confidence. It's going to paralyze your fear. It's going to paralyze your life, rather, and other things like that. So when we deal with anxiety, and we cannot deal with anxiety without knowing the word, without having good relationship with the word. And what Jesus said was that take no thought, say. Now, anxiety comes really, really when you begin to alter some words. One of the things we must understand is this: our thought is a seed. Our thought is a seed. But how can we deal with these thoughts or with anxiety? Just picture anxiety as certain thoughts, worrying about tomorrow. Jesus tells us how to deal with it. He said, take no thought saying. So which means that when you take a thought of anxiety, you must have said something about your life. You must have said something about your condition. You must have been asking some unreasonable questions about your life. Why is this happening to you? Jesus says, don't say it. That's the first thing that we need to understand. He said, don't say it. I'm talking to Christians now. He says, don't say it. So once we have dealt with that, also, the next practical step, because one of the reasons why we can't really talk fully about the subject is that people have different peculiar causes associated with their problems. So some, it's not the devil. We might say that the devil suggests thought to people, but some is not the devil. Some is just that they don't have the capacity to they don't have the capacity to deal with the problem. Another thing that I have found out is that when the devil is going to destroy us, he attacks our identity. I've come to understand, sir, that most emotional problems are associated with low self-esteem. And that's why about 3 to 4 chapters of the book was dedicated to the subject of identity, to the subject of personality, and all of that. Until you deal with the foundational problem, which is your identity, you will never be able to exercise real dominion. Genesis 1 verse 26 tells us when God was revealing his intention for creating mankind, he said, let us create man in our image and let them have dominion. Did you notice that blessing was not the first thing God gave Adam? Did you notice that a woman was not the first thing God gave Adam? Did you notice that it was not a car, it was not a house, not education? Because all of these things cannot make you happy. The first thing that God gave Adam, which is very instructive, was not even power. Because people think that I just need some supernatural power to come upon me, and when it comes upon me, I'll be able to control my life in the direction that I want. That's not true. A lot of anointed people have committed suicide. Anointed pastors have committed suicide. The first thing that God gave Adam was a sense of identity, image. If you don't deal with that foundational problem of identity, there is nothing that we talk about in the book that will even be able to solve your problems. So people who have emotional problems have identity crisis. Why would you think of killing yourself in the first place? You have lost value. You believe that your life is not value in whatsoever. Because I believe that if you believe that your life is valuable, I don't think you want to take your life. And like I said, people don't just want to take their life is because they've have a distorted thought by the devil. The way they are thinking about life is now weird. And there's no one thinking really straight that want to kill themselves. So we have to deal with this identity issue, which the word cannot deal with, which is only the word of God that can deal with it. That was how Peter transformed to a brand new person. You know, the word Peter actually means reed. It means unstable. Of course, if you are unstable, it means you're going to have, unstable emotions. One time you are saying something, another time you are saying this. And when Jesus was asking them in the book of Matthew, he said, who do people say I am? And some said, you are John the Baptist. Some said, Jesus was really, really, was like, how can you say I'm John the Baptist? But Peter said, you are the Son of the living God. You are Christ, the Son of the living God. And that statement actually transformed Peter to a brand new person. So Jesus said, based on this revelation, based on this discovery, you have become Cephas. You have become Cephas, which means stable, consistent, firm, confident. So it's based on revelation, sir. If people can discover their identity in God's word, knowing who they are in Christ Jesus, we'll be able to deal with many of our problems. Because many people like techniques. They like 6 steps, 10 steps, 15 steps, 20 steps to deal with depression. And at the end of the day, you find that these things are not working. So we can really, really deal with any problem until we address the foundational problem, which is an identity problem. So how did Eve go ahead to eat the fruits? Because he was deceived. He was deceived. Because if you don't know who you are, you will always accept Satan's deception as truth. You always accept facts as truth.
Fantastic. I like what you said about identity. And at the end of the day, as important as that is, it's not going to stop people from getting attacked and it's not going to stop people from having
Yeah,
challenges. So, what are you
that's
going to
true.
say to people who know who they are in Christ, but are finding it difficult to deal with disappointment, are finding it difficult to deal with loss? Because these are some of the things
Okay.
that are
Yeah.
emotionally
Yeah.
charged and are emotionally traumatizing to a lot of people that leads to suicide. How exactly will you address, or what solutions will you give to people who are suffering one level of heartbreak or the other that later leads to suicide? Because, like you said, a lot of people don't value themselves, and it's situations that bring them to that place. In fact, you see some people who think or who have a very positive outlook on life get attacked emotionally, and all of a sudden all of the knowledge and all of the fervor and all of the zeal that they had disappears. So what solutions will you give to such people aside from prayers and, studying, or like you said, knowing who they are in God?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I've discovered about life, sir, that I believe is going to solve the problems of many people is the fact that we need to understand that life is filled with crisis. Jesus was giving us a departing speech, the disciples rather. He said, in this world you will have tribulations. And the word tribulation was in plural form. He said, in this world you will have tribulations. You see, one of the things that make people to fall in times of crisis is because they've not prepared their hearts for those crises before those crises show up. Now, we might not be able to deal with specific problems because problems have different causes, and so different causes will actually lead to different solutions that you provide to people. Now, let's assume, for instance, you are in a relationship and you got a breakup. Now, the next thing you are doing is that you want to kill yourself. You're going to ask yourself that how has a loss of a relationship affect your general life? Now, I'm not trying to look like someone who is spiritual and who doesn't have emotions and everything like that, but people are not prepared for problems. He said, in this world you will have tribulation. Now, look at what the Bible says in the book of Proverbs. It says, if your day fail you in the day of adversity, it says your strength is small. It didn't say you don't have strength. It said your strength is small, because we need strength, inner strength, to be able to deal with the problem of life. There are times that it will look as if the word of God is not working for you. There are times that it look as if the devil is just all over. In fact, many times, do we know that the devil does not really have the time dealing with people specifically? This guy is busy with greater agenda. He's busy. So it's not like the devil is really, really, throwing everything at you. It's like the devil is facing me. I'm the one the devil is really, really dealing with at this point in life. We need to have this inner strength. We need to develop capacity. And, sir, one of the things I've noticed about emotions is that people.
I think we've lost the connection. Hello?
I think I lost you, sir.
Aha, go ahead. You said one of the things that you've discovered about emotions.
Okay, one of the things I've discovered about emotions is that most people have emotional problems, have a joy problem. Now, look at what the Bible says. We're talking about strength, and we need to find out where strength comes from. The Bible says in the book of Nehemiah, chapter 8, verse 10, that the joy of the Lord is my strength. So if it says that if your strength fails you in the day of adversity and your strength is small, if the joy of the Lord is your strength, then it means that your joy was small, because you are going to attack many problems in life with joy, with peace, with joy, with peace. So if you don't have this, what is depression? Depression is simply absence of joy. People having emotional is because people have attached their happiness and their joy to mundane things, to natural things. And people should not expect someone else to make them happy. And that's why they get disappointed, because the source of disappointment and discouragement is because you have set high expectation that people should make you feel in a certain way. So there is nobody that is responsible for your happiness. Your happiness is your sole responsibility. We need to prepare in advance before challenges show up in our lives. We need to prepare in advance. So if we don't prepare in advance, which is building capacity. In fact, the Bible tells in the book of Proverbs that a wise man store up knowledge for the future. The word store actually means to save, like to hold something in your heart. A lot of people will not read books on depression or mental health because they are not depressed currently. And that's one of the challenges that people have. People don't pay attention to their health until they start having issues about their health. By that time, it's already late. If someone who is depressed cannot read a book on depression, they can't read. If you're manically depressed, you can't read a book on depression. You can't. So the best time to deal with life issues is now. To deal with life is now. Preparing in advance for, for challenges about life. This is just my little advice for people. And there are other things also in the book that we actually help them.
Fantastic. So you guys have heard it here. Prepare for the day of adversity because it's going to come. There is no way you're going to get through life without disappointments. There's no way you're going to get through life without loss. There's no way you're going to get through life without pain. And if you're not prepared for these things, it's going to be difficult for you to be able to handle them when they come. And one thing that I'm just going to add to what you said is when you have this emotional trauma or when you have this emotional pains, seek help. Don't do the opposite of running into seclusion because that's the instinct that you feel, which is to withdraw. But I believe that we should always reach out to each other and we should try our best to seek help and to reach out and to see how best we can come out of that problem. Because if we allow ourselves to get overcome by sadness, to get overcome by sorrow, to get overcome by the situations and the circumstances of life, it's only going to end one way, which is in deep depression, and it's become a lot more difficult to get out of. What do you think about that?
I didn't hear you properly, sir.
What part did you hear?
Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
I said, what parts did you hear so that I will know where to start?
Yes, you were talking about they get in the book. I think that's where I heard.
No,
you said some other things.
I said that people need to seek help, and they they should do the opposite of running into seclusion when they have problems. So I said, what take would you have on that of people looking out for help instead of just saying, oh, I can get through this by myself? Because the book is one way that they can get help. Another way is by talking to people, is by engaging and refusing to allow themselves to be overwhelmed by the sorrow and the pain that they feel. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir. Absolutely, sir. I agree with you, sir, that the first thing actually, the Bible says that you receive not because you do not ask. There's a lot of wisdom in asking for help. It is okay not to be okay, and it is okay to ask people for help. Like I said, we need to, another thing, in fact, I need to add to that is the fact that people need to be sensitive. People are ashamed that they are depressed, and they shouldn't be that they are depressed. In fact, there are times that I will see a lot of posts on social media, but because of the things that I've noticed, that I've known about depression, I know that even though this person is posting a very good picture, a lot of people will post motivational quote on their social media, and these guys are depressed. I actually know that this particular person is depressed. They are just trying to make up for the things that they don't have. So you are very, very right, sir. There is nothing wrong in seeing a mental health specialist. There is nothing wrong in seeking, seeking assistance. In fact, one of the things that we need to also pay attention to that these days. There was a time that maybe counselors, you go to counselors for help and everything like that. These days, pastors have become the major counselors of people. So which means that pastors are the major ones now that people run to, spiritual leaders. And spiritual leaders are not well equipped on these subjects. So the only thing they tell you is that, study the word, confess the word, and that's all. So we need to also, make this a movement, empower people, take this message to people. Spiritual leaders being equipped how to help people deal with emotions. That people shouting in the church doesn't mean that everything is well with them. So not just people asking for help, are people even competent enough to solve people's problems? Because that's another challenge we are having. And we should also understand that the doctors can do their part, the psychologists can do their part, but they cannot also deal with certain problems. So spiritual leaders must come up and start addressing this issue. And one of the reasons why I believe we have so many issues is because we have not really taught on this subject for long, especially in the church.
True. Yeah, like I told you, when I went to Nigeria, I saw that a lot of the people who I spoke to needed a psychologist, not necessarily a pastor. And I was like, some of these people, I'll just send them to a psychologist instead of sitting down a couple of hours just listening to them, go through all of the things that they're going through, because I have studied a little bit of psychology. It's something that I love. I like understanding the way people think, but I'm not
Yeah.
skilled in it. So I said, I would prefer to just send this person, because from the first 5-10 minutes, I can tell if somebody's problem is spiritual, it's psychological, or it's
Yeah,
physical.
that's
So I
true.
said, if it's psychological, I would prefer to just give you the number of a psychologist, so that I can move you on to that person and you can start getting the professional help that you need. If it's spiritual, it's more of my field. If it's physical, I can give you the number of a doctor who will solve your
Yes.
health crisis and who will give you medication to be able to get you out of your problems. So these things will help to break through and make us to be a lot more productive as human beings, and to save us time. Because without us saving time, we're wasting money, because time is life. We're wasting our
That's
lives,
true.
we're wasting time, we're wasting money, and that's how some of this $1 trillion loss comes about. Because
That's
we are wasting time on the things that we're not supposed to waste time
That's
on,
what-
and we're not
that's true.
solving the problems like they should be solved. Because, like you said, a lot of people are ill-equipped to handle psychological problems in church. And
Yes,
then
sir.
when somebody comes with a psychological problem and you make it spiritual, that person will keep on being oppressed. When it's the
will.
same thing like when someone comes to church with an illness, instead of going to the hospital, the pastor says, let's pray. And then you keep praying about this problem, and instead of the doctor solving it, eventually most of these people die. I was
Yes,
talking
sorry,
to...
sir.
Yeah,
Sorry
go
to
ahead.
cut you in.
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry to cut in now. I think one of the issues we have as Christians is because we've not been able to balance medicine and Christianity, especially faith. We normally think that medicine is anti-faith. When people use drugs, we believe that it's because you don't believe in God's word, and everything like that. And that's one of the reasons why we're having a lot of problems. We don't know problems that are, if our pastors cannot design, we normally think that every problem is spiritual. That's why even in Africa, if you want to teach on finances, all they will keep saying is sowing seed. Sowing seed. As though sowing seed solves financial problems. So we don't talk about certain things. These people are not skilled. Now, you can acquire skills in the church. You can acquire how to make money in the church. You have to go outside there, learn how to make. You can learn driving in the church. You can learn tailoring in the church. You can learn business in the church. You have to go out there. So I believe that people who are skilled to handle certain issues should be given. Some of them are even Christian. Now, let's take for instance. If a psychologist is also a Christian, do you know the psychologist will be able to solve that problem more effectively than a psychologist who is not a Christian, because he knows that this problem is both a psychological problem and a medical. So people should know that our faith is not against medicine. It's against the devil. So we should not see doctors as, I don't know how Africans think. People don't want to go to the hospital. Doctors are not agents of darkness. They are not servants of the devil. They are here to help us. So we have to be bold enough. No matter how faith-filled you are, you have to be bold enough. If it's just to know what is wrong with you. There was a time I had an illness on my body. I'm a faith person. I'm a faith person. So I have this. When I got to the doctor, I was surprised when the doctor wrote the name of what was wrong with me. It was very long. I'm sure that it didn't contain the line.
The length of the paper.
The length of the paper. I was wondering that, are you telling me that this is wrong with me? Of course, the man said I should come back the following week. But now that I know what is wrong with me, I know that I don't necessarily have to go back to the doctor. This is not because I hate doctors. Now, I could use my faith to deal with that problem because I know what is wrong with me. So because the level of faith is based on knowledge, a lot of people are doing, they are doing what is wrong because they are not well equipped. So knowledge problem is actually one of the major problems in Africa, especially in the church in Africa. They will tell you to pray, to fast, to study the word. These things may need some other extra help. And we must also allow psychologists in the church, the counselors in the church, not just, we talk a lot about marriage. In Africa, we talk a lot about relationships. We talk a lot about money, sowing seed. We don't even talk about financial education. We talk about people giving and giving and giving. But the things that really destroy, this is one of the ways we know that some of these pastors don't even care about people. Because if you keep telling people to give, because the more they have, the more they will give. Why not empower them to have and they can give more? But they believe that if you give, you will have more. But that's not how it works.
That's true. In fact, that's an entirely different topic, because if we delve into the way people are being taken advantage of in Africa, when it comes to giving and when it comes to this whole money experience, it's completely something else. And like you said, you've read Money Will Make You Rich. You've read the Uncle Sam book. So understanding wealth creation is something that people need to have. And just giving is not a way to actually gaining wealth. You don't you don't become rich by giving. But that's the opposite of what is being taught in our churches.
Sue you for that.
Yeah. So you see, but that's what most Christians believe. If you ask an average Christian in Nigeria that how do you become rich, the first thing they will tell you, or the first couple of things they will tell you, is giving. And that is not the truth. That is not even in the top 10 things that you're supposed to do to gain wealth.
At all.
And sadly, these things are not being taught in church. And going back to psychology, this mental illness problem is not something that is being taught in church. Of course, they try when they say, don't worry, don't allow anxiety to take over your life. But just saying people shouldn't worry is not enough. There are tools that people need to be able to have, to be able to fend off worry, to be able to fend off anxiety, because these are natural results of things that would happen to people. So like you said, if they are not well prepared, that's going to be the end result. It's like telling somebody not to, not to have an accident on the road. But if you don't teach them how to drive, that is going to be the natural course of action. They are going to bash somebody. They are going to lose control of the car, and they're going to end up in the ditch, probably losing their lives and losing the car. So it's not like people should not have accidents. Yes, of course, that's a given. Don't worry. Don't be happy. Don't worry, be happy. You sing the song. Anxiety is of the devil. Yes, we know these things, but how?
Rejoice.
Yes, exactly. Rejoice. Again, I say rejoice. And people shout and they're euphoric on the spot, but when they go back home, they don't have the tools that it takes. So I believe that your book is one of the things that will help people to have tools to be able to overcome worry, anxiety, and depression. And I think it's going to go a long way to solve that problem in our Nigerian society, because like you said, there are 60 million people who are suffering from mental health problems. And of course, some of it is medical, like bipolar, like schizophrenia and the rest. That's the extreme part of it. But there are people who are just having basic depression based on the life challenges that they face and the fact that they don't have enough tools to handle it. So what message do you have for the Nigerian government when it comes to depression?
For the government, I believe that we can't deal with any problem until we visit the education system. You see, most of the problems we have today is because people are not well equipped. Most of the things we learn in school are actually not the things that we need. I've always been talking about this, not just about mental health problems, so many other problems. Why would someone just decide to rape another person? It's not all the people that rape people that are influenced by the devil. Because in Africa, we normally we usually blame, every of our problems on the devil. And when you know the devil very well, you know that the devil is one of the most focused person on earth. He doesn't even have business. It's one of these, some of these petty things that we are saying. He has a bigger agenda. The devil has a bigger agenda. So it's not about anxiety and everything like that. So the government needs to invest more in education, invest more in psychology. In fact, do you know that some secondary schools don't have schools counselor?
Most, they don't have, not some, most.
Not some. I'm sorry to even say that. Most don't have. In fact, they are looking for ways how they can reduce the number of staffs. So they believe that by employing counselors are expensive, that it will eat into their budget. But they prefer, spending a lot of money on, frivolous things. But education is one thing that the government need to address if we are going to address any problem at all in the society. Most of all this unemployment problem is an education problem. So we need to empower people. We need to revisit the curriculum and introduce something. It doesn't even have to be all Christians. In fact, let me even take this matter a little bit further. Do you know that even Christian schools don't have this in their curriculum?
Yep, they're busy praying.
They are praying. They will teach the student how to pray. They will teach them how to study the Bible, but they don't empower them with the tools, with the knowledge. And the only place that people really get, education, about dealing with life issues is actually in the church. And sometimes you may not be privileged to have such a pastor as a pastor. Some are just teaching, some people will even go into teaching mystery of most of the title, mystery of. This life is already mysterious. Why are you teaching on mystery?
Yeah.
So imagine that kind of a church that you attend. Everything people are learning about tabernacle today, tomorrow they are learning about 7 ounce. You can apply that to your life. So the church cannot, the church is not supposed to be the only one, the only institution that is saddled with that task. Even parents, how many parents have actually, for instance, you will expect that parents will get this book for their, they don't even know about depression. You don't know when your child is depressed. A good parent, a good mom, a good father is supposed to be able to know. But how will you know if you have not read? In fact, some parents are depressed. So it has to start from the family education. And I need to say this, that parents are the premier mentor of their child. Now, the school is out of, the school is not currently home. Look at what has been happening to students all over the world. They are jobless because school is actually I believe, is the most important place that people get knowledge. So now that school is out of session, parents are looking for ways, to get their children busy. When was the last time you sat your child down discussing about emotions? That it's okay to have an erection. Talking to a young male child. But there are parents that will say that when a guy touch you, that's talking about lady, you're going to get pregnant. That's poor education. Nobody gets pregnant by just touching a lady. Because they feel that by imparting fear into them, then no. We build character through knowledge. And that's why I have to mention education system. There are no courses on mental health. Everybody in the university ought to have, at least a tip of psychology. It's not supposed to be a course that will just be studied, by just psychology. In fact, some people don't even like the course. The people who are in psychology don't like the course. They probably applied for medicine. Everyone can be a medical doctor.
Yeah, they were forced into it. So now they just have to be there. But they don't understand that it's a gold mine. I kept telling the doctors I was trying to recruit over here that imagine opening a practice in Nigeria. You will be one of the few people to begin. And your living room will be full, your waiting room will be filled with people because we have 60 million people who need help. And there are not even up to 10,000 people in the country currently that are willing to offer these people help.
I'm telling you.
So it's a gold mine, literally.
I'm telling you. So education becomes the major tool to transform a society, just like Nelson Mandela said. Education is if we don't teach them, from the grassroots, for instance, I thought about it, when I wrote the book, I said I was going to start organizing mental health campaign. It's not because I'm trying to be a mental health specialist. In fact, like I said, I'm surprised that I wrote the book. My area of interest is not even in mental health. It's in leadership, entrepreneurship, business development, and capacity building. But how can people come up with creative ideas if they have not been taught how to harness their emotions, profiting from their emotions and everything like that? But look at, even if you submit a proposal to schools, they don't care about it. They prefer teaching the student on arithmetic, on differentiation, integration. When you get to the real world and you are posed with problems, you will not be able to apply those knowledge of integration. You may be the best mathematician when you were in school, but when life, when life happens to you, you will know that you need more than maths to actually deal with life problems. There is no course on money in the university, no course on finances, even as an elective, nothing. So it tells you that the government needs to prioritize education. Any government that is going to solve this problem must prioritize it, just like you said, we have less than 10,000. If 60 million people are depressed, even if the 10,000 people are competent, they can't possibly solve the problem. Mm-hmm. So there is scarcity of professionals. And the pastors should also come up teaching some of these things, in their church. Not teaching things that, I'm not saying they can't teach on faith and teach on other things, but if you truly have people at you have the love of people at heart, I believe you're going to teach on these things. If I wrote in the book that to be a pastor doesn't mean you fend for people just spiritually. Man is a tripartite being. He's a spirit, he has a soul, he lives in a body. And you know that out of all those three compartments, the major area that we have problem with is in our emotions. And there's nothing being taught on that, even in the church. So the church must become a pace setter for the government.
That's very good. I'm glad that you've spoken to the church because I wanted to bring you to what you have to say to the church, to the government, and to the individuals. But you've said all of that already in that breath, which is the government needs to do more education-wise. And I think you should write a letter to the Minister of Education. And those of us that are watching, we should also write letters to this Minister of Education to make them know, or to make, I don't know if it's a man or a woman, to make this individual know that there has to be a reform so that people can psychologically be taken care of in school before they even get into society. Because we need to normalize talking about mental illness. We need to normalize it, because you said something, you said HIV is now something people are no longer shy about. And that's because it was normalized. There was a campaign that was put out by the government, that was put out by individuals to normalize it and make people realize that HIV is not a death sentence anymore and it's something that can be treated. So I believe that talking about psychological problems, mental illness, emotional trauma is something that we need to normalize in society so that people will not feel like it's something they need to hide. Or they will not feel stigmatized by it and say, oh, if I have this problem, I need to hide it so that people will not laugh at me and stuff like that. They should see it as a normal part of life, like every other illness that can be solved. And then you spoke about the individual. You said you are starting a mental health campaign, and I believe everybody who is listening should do the same. Talk to people about their mental health. Talk to people about depression. When you see a kid behaving abnormally, don't immediately say it's the devil. Try to talk to them to find out what exactly is wrong. They might just be going through depression, because like the statistics from the World Health Organization says, every year, 25% of high school kids contemplate suicide. Now, it might be because they are not coping in class. It might be because they are being bullied. It might be because they are not able to deal with some of the challenges they are facing in school. So these are things that can be solved. It's not all about the devil. It's not all about spiritual attacks. Some of these things are just life. So I believe that every single person has an obligation to talk about mental health, to seek knowledge on mental health, and to, which is part of why we're here, which is buy this book, educate yourself, prepare yourself, fortify yourself, because these challenges will come. They will either come to you as a person, or they will come to somebody close to you. It might come to your friend, it might come to your kid, it might come to your husband, it might come to your partner. So you cannot afford to just ignore it because it is coming. And then you spoke to the church. Pastors should start talking about mental health. They should start talking about things that have to do with the mental and the psychological well-being of their church. Because when you spiritualize everything and you ignore the soul and the minds of people, it will become a problem. I like one of the catchy phrases that you used in your book. You said, the heart of the matter is the matter of the heart. And I found that very catchy, and I said, yeah, this is very true, because a lot of people don't deal with the matters of the heart when it comes to what you do in your day-to-day life. They only use it as a faith tool, that, oh, every day you should tell yourself you're rich, you're prosperous, and all of that. But what happens when things don't go your way? What happens when there are disappointments? What happens when someone defrauds you? What happens when there's massive, emotional trauma that just happens out of the blue? Because most times you don't prepare for these things, and most times you don't expect them. So when they happen, they are so traumatic that people don't know what to do. So I feel like on the personal, on the governmental, and on the educational level, even on the church level, mental health has to be normalized and spoken about extensively, so that we can have a more productive society, a more productive and happy society. What do you say?
Let me add something to what you just said, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Let's take secondary school as an example. For instance, one of the ways we know that lack of finance is not a legitimate reason for contemplating suicide. Why would high school students contemplate suicide? Now, I was going to drive at something. Now, does the government actually have any scheme or program initiative of empowering teachers? I know that we have counseling as a field of study. And even the field of study is still not well respected. Even if you tell people you are studying counseling in the school, it will be like it's for dumb people. And actually, there are a lot of dumb people there, actually. That's another problem. So people think that, but when you...
that's because they are being pushed into it. It's not people who are going into it informed and loving it and wanting to make an impact through it.
Yeah, if you tell people you are studying education in school, be like, dumb people. Education is for dumb people. And they don't know that the problem that we have currently in society is actually an education problem. So I was going to drive at something about teachers. Now, the government trains, teachers in counseling, basic psychology. But what about the mathematics teacher? Because most teachers are not even close with their students. They are broke. So they don't even care about the student. Teaching is not just about mathematics. It's not just about physics. You see, these teachers must be, and I'm not talking about counselors now. I'm talking about even all teachers in secondary schools. They must be well equipped. They might not be as sound as the professionals, like the counselors, like the psychologists, but they have the basic tool. And one of the ways you can really get knowledge fast is by reading. Is by reading. At least you know what to tell the students. Let's assume, let's take for instance, a student walk up to you telling you about something. You should know. The students, people don't even know they are depressed. That's one major problem. They don't know that they are depressed. So how can they seek for help when they don't even know? There are some people that I have to tell. I don't tell them, directly that you are depressed. I just paint the whole picture to them so that they will get the message and everything like that. But I know that they are depressed because I've taken my time to study this, subject, and I find out that I can empower people. So teachers must be empowered by the government. We need to introduce this thing to the school system. An average teacher should know basic things about health, mental health especially, emotion, because that's when they can become, more productive.
That's very true. Well, you're in Osun State, you can start with your Minister of Education over there and then write a letter to the federal government as well. I believe that that's going to go a long way to start the conversation on this matter, because if you write an open letter to the Education Secretary in your state and you write an open letter and you post it online and you send it to them individually, I think it will help people to begin the conversation on this mental health change. And I believe it will also spur other people to begin to think differently. Because I believe in Nigeria, we have a lot of people who are interested in psychology, but they don't know how to go about it. In society, it's not something that is respected. It's not something that is spoken about. So they need people like you to tell them, hey, this is something you can get into. This is something that is important. This is something that the government should prioritize. Because as much as we have doctors for the body, we need doctors for the mind. One is not better than the other. In fact, I believe that doctors for the mind are going to help with preventive care to make sure that you don't end up with the physical doctors giving you medication and giving you all of the help that comes from that is a ripple effect from the things that go on in your mind.
Yeah. In fact, Pastor Joshua, if we can deal with most sicknesses in the mind, we are going to have fewer sicknesses in the body.
I agree.
Because the body is as strong as the mind. The body is as strong as the mind. So if we have more, so the problem, like I said, is really, really, really a fundamental problem. Now, when you tell someone that you studied medicine, wow, people are wow that you studied medicine. But if you tell someone that you study psychology, you study counseling, we are even the one criticizing them. If our parents would not even encourage their children to study psychology in school, because everyone is just looking for the fame, is looking for the glamour. Oh, I'm a doctor. I'm this, I'm that, I'm an engineer. So those courses have been trivialized in the university that people don't want to come in for it. So people will prefer learning about teeth for 7 years. That's just a lot of time, and I'm sorry for dentists listening. But that's just on a lighter mode. So we need to also empower people, encourage people. How do people know that these courses are good? Because they tell them. This secondary school, they don't even know if any course is good. When I was in secondary school, I chose medicine because that's what everybody was talking about. It was later I found out that I'm not really in this for this medicine thing. I later found out that all I want to do with my life is to teach. So all the years looking for medicine, applying for job, I should have gone to just study one basic education course and just get out of university. So I wasted my time looking for medicine. Thank God I didn't even get into medicine, because if I had studied medicine, I would have even dropped out from the faculty. Because it was not my passion. Empowering people with knowledge is my passion. And I didn't know. But I know that when you tell people that you want to study medicine, that's a good. But when you tell your parents you want to study psychology, education, the first thing they will ask you is that there is no money there. Go and study medicine.
Ladies and gentlemen, there is money in it. Let's proclaim to them that there is money in psychology, it, because people will pay you to treat their minds.
There is money. Money is a reward for solving problems. Yeah. And so people are always having problems every day. So instead of just giving and sowing seed, planting sacrificial seed in your church, look for problems of people and start solving it. Mm-hmm. Organize mental. You don't even have to be skilled. Some people have influence, but they don't have the knowledge. You may not have the skill. You may just invite, a professional. Organize. You are a school principal. That's a leverage for you. You have influence over 3,000 students. You are a vice chancellor. That's a leverage for you. You don't need to be skilled. You don't need to know everything, the nitty-gritty of mental health and everything. You can bring people, invite people and let them have a session for them. So instead of teaching them how to do wig, how to, all these kinds of skill acquisition programs in secondary schools, they are not affecting the minds of people. The business that will stand the test of times are really the one that comes from innovation. And those innovations can really come when a mind is productive.
True.
So it's a clarion call to a lot of people.
Yeah, I believe that we should all begin a campaign for mental health soundness.
Honest.
We should have a mental health month in Nigeria. We should have a national day of mental health. We should talk about it on TV, on radio, in our schools, even from the primary level to the secondary to the tertiary. This is something that we have to normalize. There has to be a revolution when it comes to talking about mental health. We have to talk about it in church. We have to talk about it in our families. A lot of parents, like you said, don't know when their kids are depressed. A lot of them don't even know how to handle depressed kids because they've not read anything about it. So that's why this book has been made available. Guys, you need to go and get this book, The Mind Flayer. It will make you understand emotions. It will make you understand depression. It will make you to be able to master your life and master your emotions. And that is something that you would never lose touch of, because at every point at every point in time in your life, you would always have to be able to deal with your emotions. You always have to be able to deal with your output and your reaction to things. And when you can master your emotions, things will change. You can go and look at other books like Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman, and you will see how much the mind carries. And I even believe that the mind is a lot stronger than the body, because when you look at people like Stephen Hawking, for example, he was a quadriplegic, but his mind was sound and he was the foremost astronomer in the world. So I feel like as long as your mind is sound, there are no limits to the things that you can accomplish. So guys, you need to go and get this book. You need to begin to read it, share the knowledge with people, start movements, post things about mental health, talk to people about mental health, allow yourself to be open to people discussing about their mental health with you. Don't laugh at them. Don't stigmatize them. Don't rebuff them when they try to speak about these issues. Encourage everyone around you to speak about their mental health and seek help. And I believe it will go a long way to change the outcome of Nigeria's economy and the general output of our people. So any last words from you before we go today?
Oh, thank you so much, sir, Pastor Joshua. I just want to appreciate Dr. Sonja Adelaja for this awesome opportunity to be on this platform. This is huge. This is huge for me, and for our viewers at home. I want to appreciate you for joining. All I just want you to understand today that if you can learn how to tame your emotions, which I feel that everybody should know how to do that, you would have programmed your life for success. If you don't know how to control your emotions, success is just a dream, and it will always be a dream. So my counsel to everyone today is that we need to take our emotions serious, no matter how strong you are in the body. So a lot of people spend a lot of time, working out. People go to the gym, working out, bringing out muscles and everything. But when you are hit with depression, those muscles, those 6 packs, 10 packs, or whatever you call it, it's not going to help you. It's not going to help you. So people go, if you can invest so much in your physical body. I have the privilege to witness a dead body a few months ago. This year, I noticed that once the soul is taken, that's all about the body. That's all. There is nothing really about this body. The real person is the spirit and the soul. And that's why the Bible tells us to be renewed in the spirit. Even the Bible talks a lot about the mind. It talks that we should be transformed by the renewing of our mind. It tells us to guard our heart with all diligence, for out of it are issues of life. You see, a lot of things on the mind. So we need to invest in our mind, invest in knowledge. It doesn't stop here. If I doesn't stop with this book, because I believe that this book, the knowledge too might be limited. In fact, if you read the book, there are other lists of books that I've read that I believe can help people about the mind. So thank you, sir, Pastor Joshua. Thank you, DXA, Embassy of God. I really, really appreciate you for this great opportunity. It's a huge boost for me and an encouragement for me, to really bring out the other things that God has put in my heart. Thank you so much, sir.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, David. It was great having you here with us, and we really applaud you for writing this book. We applaud you for bringing forth these truths and helping to start this conversation. I don't know if other people are talking about mental health issues in Nigeria, but I believe that what you have begun is something that can bring about a transformation in our world, especially in Africa, because psychologically, and when it comes to mental health, we are behind. But thanks to your book, I believe we can begin something completely new and something completely different. So thank you very, very much for this. We hope that your campaign would grow. We look forward to your letters. We look forward to this push that you're going to create when it comes to mental health. and I believe it will go a long way to help us as a nation. So thank you very much for coming. We look forward to hearing
Thank you
more
so
from you
much,
in the
sir.
future. Have a great
Thank you
day.
so much.
And guys, we're going to be posting the links to where you can get his book right there on Facebook and on YouTube. At the top of the page, we'll be pinning it. So please stick around for that, and so that you'll be able to get this book and give it as a gift to other people. Share it with as many people as you can. And we need this book to go viral, and we need people to get it and distribute the copies to schools, to friends, as many as possible. Thank you very much. All right, guys, that was David Oyeleye all the way from Nigeria giving us a review on his book, The Mind Flayer. And I can assure you that your emotions are not going to remain the same. Your mind, your outlook on the world will not remain the same after reading that book. All right. So the DSA Vintage app is here. It is live. It is something that everyone needs to get. So please go to your Apple Play Store, go to your Google Play Store and type Vintage DSA app, and you will see there, download it, and you would have a whole world of things to enjoy. It is a one-stop shop for all things, and this is coming soon. It is already here. It is a one-stop shop for all things DSA. So you need to get that today. As you're talking to me right now, if you have not downloaded the app, download it immediately. It is something that you don't want to miss out on. There is a mentorship group. There are a couple of mentorship groups that DSA has. One, mentorship on money. If you want to become a millionaire, DSA will teach you how to do so through his mentorship group. Becoming a millionaire is a skill. We talked about the skill of overcoming depression. Becoming wealthy is a skill. You can get those skills in this Millionaires Mentorship group. Also, you can find out who you are. We talked about identity as well. Finding out who you are and why you are alive is a major way to overcome depression. It's a major way to fight against depression, and it's a major way to understand your self-worth that is vital in having a healthy mental health. So we need to be able to know who we are, and this mentorship group would help you to do that. There's also the classical mentorship, and all you need to do is write to mentorship@godembassy.org, mentorship@godembassy.org, and tell them which of the mentorship groups you want to join. If you want to join a mentorship on millionaires, on becoming a millionaire, write to this place and tell them, I want to become a millionaire. I want to join the millionaires mentorship group, and they will tell you what to do. If you want to find out who you are, write, I want to find out who I am and why I'm alive, and I want to join the mentorship group on that. Mentorship@godembassy.org is below on your screen. If you just want classical mentorship, you can also do that and write and say, I just want a classical mentorship from Dr. Sunday, and I believe you'll be given an opportunity to do that. So Dr. Sunday's books are all over the internet. You can find them on Amazon.com. You can find them on bambooks.io. You can find them on Okada Books. You can find them on dsabooksplanet.com. And these are places where you can explore all of the things that DSA has prepared for you. And I believe that those of you who want to listen to audios and all that, you can find these things on the DSA app. You can find them on YouTube. There are lots of series on how you can overcome. In fact, there's a series on overcoming depression that DSA has done to back up the knowledge that is in David's book. And I believe that as you go through all of these things, you will not remain the same. You need to empower yourself to be able to empower your world, to be able to change your world. You can become whatever you want to be as long as you're willing to discipline yourself to go through the process of educating and empowering yourself, and there is nothing you will not be able to accomplish. It doesn't matter the challenges that you face. A smart man once said, it's not what happens to you that matters, it's how you react to it. And your reactions will come from the knowledge you have. If you're feeling depressed today, there is hope. If you're feeling tired and weary about life, suicide is not the answer. You can become a solution to your world if you listen to these teachings by DSA. If you read these books like the one that David has written, there is hope. Lack of hope is one of the things that is destroying our world today. But we want to tell you here today that there is hope. Suicide is not the answer. There is packaged in you a solution for your world. All you have to do is give yourself a chance to explore the knowledge, to explore God, to explore the love that the world and that God has for you. And you will see that you will become a completely different person. Empowering yourself is not something that you need to do when the problem hits. You can do that before it comes. So this book is not for people who are depressed per se, but you need to fortify yourself in case and just for when you have emotional trauma, which is definitely going to come, except you live in heaven. And as long as we're on earth and we're human, these challenges will come. Jesus told the disciples, like David reminded us, he said, tribulations will come, but you have to be able to overcome them. He said, but be of good cheer, I have overcome the world. So it's a process. And I want you to know that no matter how depressed you feel, hopeless you feel today, there is hope for you. And you just need to reach out and we'll be able to help you. On DS's platform, you have lots of materials. David has this book, The Mind Flayer. These are tools that can help you to overcome depression. All right. So till next week, thank you very much for joining us. If you have any thoughts, please write it down. We'll be able to get back to you. If you have any questions, write them down. We'll read through the comments and respond to you as well. Thank you very much. Till next week. Bye for now.